Hello. I just did my buzz, so you know that this is not my PhD. My supervisor will attest to the fact I'm a big fan of doing things that aren't my PhD. And about 18 months ago, my best friend said to me, I want to start playing World of Warcraft. And I said no. And he went, why not? I said, I'm doing a PhD and I would like to finish it. And he went, go on. And I said, oh, okay then. They released a new raid yesterday and I was here with you guys and not playing, so I'm not bitter about that at all. My other big fan is taking jokes way too far past beyond when they're funny, so you thought you weren't going to hear any more about COVID-19. Here I am. COVID-19. I'm going to try and minimize the bit about COVID because we all lived with it and probably don't want to hear that much about it. But it caused a pandemic. Funnily enough, you may remember, for about 18 months or 5 years, depending on who you speak to. It killed about 7 million people to date. Pandemic also happened in World of Warcraft. This is the fun bit. So basically there was a raid that is designed for high-level players. It's designed for people with the best gear. And in this raid, you got a debuff, and the debuff gave you ticking damage, so every second or two you took damage, right? So in World of Warcraft, you can have pets, and these pets follow you around, and they help you fight. And the pets could also get the debuff, and the debuff was spread by standing near people. So people would dismiss their pets, effectively putting them into stasis, finish the raid, they would fast travel out, they would go, where's my pet? They'd get their pet out, pet still had debuff. Pet gave debuff back to player, player gave debuff to other player, pandemic. So there was no duration on this debuff, so it lasted indefinitely. But an issue with it was, it meant that lower level players also got this debuff, and then died. Because, they were never supposed to be in the raid in the first place. It was never supposed to happen. Slight tangent. Where is the safest place to be in a pandemic, and why do you think it's Madagascar? So, if you're laughing, it's because you played the same game that I've played, where you create a virus and you try and spread it. And the game is, I think Pandemic, the board game, has a similar theme, but the mobile game I played is called Plague Inc. And the minute any country goes, we've got a pandemic, Madagascar closes its borders and you can't infect it. And it's incredibly frustrating. But it kind of, the things I say in these talks, right, I don't know how you don't just think I'm a psychopath. Maybe you do. So anyway, yeah, so there are kind of parallels in games already. So then these young rascals were like, whoa, we had a pandemic in World of Warcraft. What if the way people acted in that is the way people are going to act in real life? And it's quite a good paper. I'd recommend you read it. I don't agree with it, and I'm going to tell you why. And they weren't the only ones. So when Corrupted Blood happened, the World Health Organization contacted Blizzard and were like, yo, can we have your data? Blizzard were like, no. They said it wouldn't be useful, but everything, I think they're ashamed. I would be, but yeah, I don't think they're very happy with it. But yeah, so there's a Wired article. Corrupted Blood perfectly predicted our pandemic. No. There's another paper that's like, it's possible that we could use this data, but maybe we should be cautious. And then there's an article in the American Institute for Economic Research that says, it's not a model for COVID-19. The TLDR of that is, please stop talking about it, you're getting on my nerves. So, research is, research, Wired article is not research. People are kind of, considering this, sorry, the screen on here is not the screen on there. So, how is it done? Is this even possible? So there's something called the mapping principle, which is basically saying that a virtual world can be used to map reality. And it's in theory, a great idea because it's cheap and easy, you can make changes to it, and there's like a lot less impact than if you were actually going to do this in real life. Sorry. Intentionally affecting people is unethical. You can't test it in the real world. So they said there's three kind of things that you need to map these virtual worlds. You need to make sure that the virtual world reflects the real one. I think this is pretty much what I'm going to talk about, and we're going to kind of ignore the fact that like magic and dragons and stuff doesn't exist. Like that is a problem, don't get me wrong, but like that's not what we're going to talk about. Reliability, which in this case they said, basically if you do it multiple times in the same simulation, is it going to happen the same? And generalizability, does the found effect replicate into the real world? So I can't really find any actual, sorry, this is trying not to be really rude here, actual research on whether the same thing happened in both, but you know, we'll talk about some of the stuff that happened. So some of the stuff that did happen is that people came together. So in World of Warcraft, you would get priest players who could dispel the debuff, and they would stand there, and they would yell, and they would be like, yo, I'm dispelling debuffs. And people would actually line up, and they would dispel them at risk to themselves, because they may also catch the debuffs while they do it. And kind of the same thing happened during COVID, where you had a load of people that had left the healthcare profession, and they all came back to work in hospitals and the test sites and all of this kind of stuff. Humans also moved apart. In World of Warcraft, people spread out. They would stay away from each other. They would give each other a really wide berth. I do this anyway. I play multiplayer games, like the single-player games, and all the other people are just like NPCs, but I actually think it's more common than you think. And also on Earth, in reality, people also spread apart. Towards the end and after COVID, like people were trying to move out of cities and into the countryside to have more space. And people were griefing. In World of Warcraft, people deliberately tried to spread the debuff, and funnily enough, in reality, people would cough on each other to try and spread COVID. I really didn't know what to put as a picture for that. It felt a bit weird to like try and find a picture of someone coughing. Like, yeah, I mean, don't do it. It's gross. So you know, there are probably other similarities, like low-level players and vulnerable people, kind of, you know, both being particularly vulnerable to this kind of stuff. So what's the issue? That sounds great. The thing is, people don't behave. People may be random, but their behavior is predictable. People don't behave in games like they behave in real life. And part of this is the Proteus effect. These cool kids did some research. And there's been loads of research on this also since. But when they did it, they found that tall avatars made people more confident. And attractive avatars made people more intimate in self-disclosure talks. So, like, although these may not be directly relevant to COVID, you can already see that, well, I mean, if you're more confident, that could definitely impact, like, the kind of stuff you're doing in game that you wouldn't then do in real life. For me, the biggest difference is risk. This is mostly my personal opinion. In World of Warcraft, you respawn. If you kill yourself repeatedly in short succession, you do have to wait a little bit to respawn. But in real life, and I don't want to get into a debate about what anyone thinks happens after death, like, it's not the forum. But I'm fairly sure that you don't click a button, respawn at a spirit ghost as a ghost, fly back to your body, and then instantly reappear with only your clothing taking the damage. Without any references, I'm gonna say that doesn't happen. And a very good example of this. So this is what a spirit healer looks like, but this isn't a spirit healer. This is actually what happens when the Pandaren priest over here flies up really high in the air and then dismounts themselves and drops. So fun backstory to this. Pandarans have a passive called Bouncy, and Bouncy means you take half fall damage. So of all the characters I could have picked to try and drop myself from a great height, to kill myself for a screenshot for this talk, that was not the one. So 3 times I had to fly up in the air, drop myself, watch my character fall. I wouldn't do that in real life. You're probably all pleased to know. And I don't think I would turn into an angel if I did. Well, you know, maybe. I wouldn't look like this. So this bit is my opinion, I definitely do different things in games because the risk is just not there. I'm not going to throw myself off the top of CS just to see what happens, to take a picture of it for a talk. Probably wouldn't be able to give. Sorry. Yeah, okay. So yes, that is my talk. The TLDR is that game behavior does not reflect the real world enough to be using it. Soz.
Thanks, Lauren. There we go. Okay, does anyone have any questions? To be fair.
I got you. Very good talk, Lauren. I'm curious what you think with that sort of, game behavior doesn't reflect the real world enough. Is there not a space then for players to perhaps be someone else that they would like to be in an environment that perhaps that allows them to do that? I'm talking from my own research where people, if they are going through something like that is destabilizing in their life, the virtual world allows them that opportunity to be someone's, do something else, see something else that maybe can help them either disassociate from the situation or actually practically deal with that at hand. So whilst the risks are still, you're not going to throw yourself off a building, there are things at least the game can allow you to do to help you at least understand what is happening in a way that makes sense. Certainly from the research I've been doing, that's where, deriving understanding or deriving meaning through your character identification or engaging with a story in that way.
I think there's definitely meaning there. Mm-hmm. And I definitely think that people use games to help them with stuff. There's research that actually, I don't know how definite they said this, but they speculated. And they speculated very well with a lot of very good reasoning. That the Draenei class, who historically are a class that have they were like persecuted and they are still healers. They're one of the few races that can heal other people despite not playing a healing class. Mm-hmm. And they said that people probably choose this class because it reflects like some past trauma that they've been through, or that they've also been through a difficult situation, and like they can use this to like express themselves and to like help work through that in like how the Draenei did it and like draw parallels and stuff. But I still think, and there's also research that's like gender, like people explore their gender through video games. I think I would be hesitant to say, I think I would stick, my views are, I would stick with they're exploring an issue or a situation or an aspect of themselves, rather than this is exactly how I would act if I was a different gender, if I was a different race, if I actually, had horns and hooves. Because I think that the lack of risk means that they could do things that they wouldn't otherwise do.
Duly noted. Thank you.
Okay, I think we've got time for 2 more.
Hi, yes, very interesting, very fun talk. Something I was thinking about in terms of like game behavior, with the current, with our current modern culture, how you have some individuals calling others NPCs and the like, of how they're trying to, instead of the game behavior emulating real world, it's the real world trying to emulate game behavior. And just I guess I'm asking like, what's your take on like the mindset that people are doing the opposite of trying to apply game behavior to the real world, and maybe how, like I remember I watched one video from someone on YouTube who was talking about the game Dishonored, and it was like Dishonored and like the morality of unchecked power, where someone who has enough power to just do whatever they want, and how you can see people start doing that in a game in environments where they're in that mindset of just like, these are just NPCs, they're just people that I can do whatever I want with them. So yeah, I guess what's your take on that in terms of?
I don't really know any cases of it happening beyond like just language coming from games into the real world. Like, I actually think when you're calling someone an NPC, I don't even think NPCs are like that good. Like, I think people are overestimating that. But yeah, so I don't know of any cases where people have gone that drastic, have gone that like, I can do anything. I can't fly. I can in World of Warcraft, but I'm not going to try. You'll be pleased to know.